I'm so sorry. I'm trying to.
All right. Boy, those 10 minutes sure go fast, don't they? Just ask folks to take their seats.
Oh, I just saw someone in Vancouver run out of the room.
Yeah. Welcome back. I am very, very excited about this next session. Okay, I've been excited about the session, really. But this one is really great too. And it's going to be facilitated by our host, Trymaine Gaither, who is Special Assistant to the Provost. And I have so many good things I want to say about him, but I know he wants to get his folks up here to talk to you. So Trymaine, will you please come steal the show?
Thank you, Erica, for having me. It's such a joy and a privilege. So good afternoon, and welcome to the Elevate panel on mindfulness and anti-racist modalities to improve learning. We are gathered here today as part of the Teaching Excellence Conference to delve into a crucial intersection of pedagogy, equity, and personal growth. Okay, just so you know, I use he, him pronouns. Truly privileged to be moderating this panel discussion. So in our pursuit of creating inclusive and empowering learning environments, we recognize the imperative of addressing racial inequities within our academic community. So today we embark on a journey that brings forth an initiative from within the Washington State University, the Mindfulness-Based Anti-Racism Program, or MBAR for short. So this program represents an unwavering commitment to fostering equity and a sense of belonging for all members of our university family. In the current landscape where conversations about race, oppression, and equity are more pressing than ever, the role of educators transcends the mere dissemination of knowledge. It is about cultivating an environment that not only embraces diversity, but actively works to dismantle the barriers that have persisted for far too long. So the Mindfulness-Based Anti-Racism Program stands as just a small beacon of hope and a call to action for all of us to engage in the noble pursuit of inclusive teaching and learning. So through this integration of mindfulness, self-compassion practices, and anti-racism education, this program goes beyond the surface and engages participants in profound self-reflection, storytelling, and critical dialogue. It encourages us to confront our biases, to see and sit with the suffering in our midst, and to challenge ourselves to be agents of change. So by embarking on this collective journey, and the invitation is for you to embark on this collective journey, faculty members can gain insights into the deeply ingrained societal structures that perpetuate inequality, while simultaneously equipping themselves with the tools to foster authentic connections and dialogue across differences. Over the course of this panel, we'll be joined by esteemed educators and advocates who will share their experiences, insights, and expertise, and they've all participated in the Mindfulness-Based Anti-Racism Program. Through their narratives, we will explore the potential of mindfulness and anti-racist modalities in the realm of education. And our intention is not just to highlight the accomplishments of the Mindfulness-Based Anti-Racism Program, but to inspire meaningful conversations and actions within your own teaching and learning. So again, I extend my warmest welcome to each one of you. Your presence here today is a testament to your dedication to the cause of equitable education, so thank you. And now I'll bring up, very formal, isn't it? I heard this was a laid-back group. This is formal. You didn't see that coming, huh? Okay, so we're gonna call up, and I would like some music. It would be nice to have you like a Jimmy Fallon kind of thing. To come up. So yeah, I actually requested, I wanted Questlove. I actually requested that from Erica. She didn't make it happen for me. So starting with Charice DeGuzman. Mental health counselor, associate multicultural specialist in the Cougar Health Services, and is also a Cougar alum. All right. Kersten Bergstrom. A LIFT fellow and a LIFT facilitator, and she's also she's co-facilitated MBAR with me quite a few times, and she is working to become a trained mindful self-compassion teacher, and she's acted as the co-chair for the pedagogy working group for the National Day of Racial Healing. Glad she's with us. Next is Clif Stratton. He teaches in the Department of History and currently serves as Vice Chancellor for Academic Engagement here at WSU Pullman. Lastly, but certainly not least, Jennifer Robinson, professor in the College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences and serves as the Associate Vice President for Interprofessional Education. All right, so let's just jump right in. Kirsten, I always ask you to do this, but could you please keep time for me?
I'm gonna be the one that tells us to wrap it up.
Yeah, I don't want to go over.
In MBAR, I do this in MBAR too.
So first set of questions, and so we're coming up on the first week of the semester. I want to start with you, Jennifer. At the start of each academic term, there's a new mix of identities, aspirations, and abilities, and it's up to us as equity-minded faculty to assume some responsibility for students in their social and academic growth. So thinking about the first week of school, Jennifer, what are some ways to welcome students, to get to know them and validate their abilities at the start of the academic term? I can hear it.
It is working? Yeah, is it working?
Is it working? Can you hear me? Vancouver, can you hear me? Vancouver. Hey. Thank you. Appreciate it for the sound check there. So before I answer this question, one thing that I really want to do is to have a shout out for Trymaine. I think Trymaine has done really remarkable work within the WSU system and across the WSU system, trying to forward equity practices and mindfulness practices. And so the work that you do is exceptional, and I'm unbelievably thankful to be here and to serve on this panel. So thank you for including me. When I think about the first week of classes, I really think about what can we do before students actually come to class. So I do get the benefit of I teach in a program that is a cohort-based program, and before the students start the program, they have an orientation that starts the week before. So I very intentionally the week before insert myself into orientation somehow, so I can start meeting the students, getting to know them, getting to know their names, getting to know their stories, and sharing a little bit about me. The purpose of that is trying to build those initial seeds of a foundation of trust, so that when they come into the classroom the next week, that they know me at least a little bit. Also, before the semester starts, I do some introductions by email so that students feel prepared when they come into class. As long as they're checking their emails. Once they enter the class, I really think of my classroom spaces as my home and a space that I'm having students enter into. And so with the classroom space being my home, I need to figure out ways to make it as inviting as possible to the students who are going to enter into that space. And so I will commonly use music as the students are coming into the class. So this morning I was listening to Beatles on my way driving down here from Spokane, down here to Pullman, and I thought, ooh, this would be really great if we could have Imagine playing right before class starts, because I think it sets the tone and it makes that classroom space feel warm and inviting, and a place where the students feel welcome. During that first day in class, I really intentionally try to share with the students who I am and give the students the opportunity to share with each other who they are. Because in that classroom, it's not just about their relationship with me, but really it's about their relationship with one another and building those communities so that they can feel connected. During that first day, at the end of the day, I will commonly have some sort of reflective exercise for the students. So why are they here? What are they most excited about? What makes them nervous? And after class, I read those reflections. And then at the beginning of the second class, I pick out themes from what I've read so that students can feel like, oh, these are the things I'm nervous about. Other people are nervous about the same things. And I can give them some tips, some tools, some tricks so that they can come and approach me and we can have conversations about what they can do to be successful. So those are a few things that I do during the week of week welcome and then syllabus week to try to start the semester off.
Thank you, Trymaine. Clif, what are some additional concrete steps that faculty can take to sort of demystify their expectations and demonstrate that they support students at the start of the semester?
Well, I want to echo a lot of what Jennifer said. And I was thinking about the last song I played on the first day of class, and I think it was not Imagine. Yeah. I think it was Rock and Roll Doctor by Little Feat. Old George, anybody? No? My students are like that too. Anyway, but I think that's a way, like music's one way, and there's many other ways to get students to know you as a person. And I think we're all at different levels of comfort with that, right? I probably was less comfortable doing that when I first started teaching. I'm a lot more comfortable doing it now, even though I'm a lot older than them now. I was much closer in age when I started doing this to them. They would, you know, kind of like, are you supposed to be up in the front there? And they don't ask me that anymore. But anyway, I think having some familiarity, right? This is a really important way to establish trust, right? So trusting them that whatever you share with them, whether it be vulnerabilities, whether it just be your interests, your journey to where you got, and we didn't all get to where we got on some sort of seamless, smooth trajectory, right? We had failures, we had successes, and getting students to see that side of you, I think, is really valuable. So the way in which you do that, right? Jennifer mentioned a few, you can reach out to them over email. We have recorded a video from teaching a global class this fall. So just checking in with them visually, even though we're not going to be in a room together all the time, getting them to hear your voice, see your face, allowing them to see you thinking through some things or raising questions can be, humanize you in a way that breaks down the barriers insofar as you're comfortable between your authority in the room and your role as really a guide and a mentor. One of the things I did is to, I replaced something in my syllabus. I don't even remember what was there, but there's a statement in there about myself really as, I'm an expert. I actually don't have all the answers. I do, I think. And a lot of stuff that we're supposedly experts about, we can look them up. But it's really about guiding and helping students navigate the course material, navigate skill building, navigate conflict, navigate uncomfortable ideas, new ideas, threatening ideas, in ways that's not easy but healthy, right? For them. So those are some things, some other practical things that I'll do. This isn't maybe just first day or first week, but thinking about the course as a whole is like Jennifer mentioned, an inviting classroom space, and that's with things like your syllabus not being a legal document. going to be offering another panel after this. If you want to come. Yeah, and you know, using flexibility in both policy or grading scale whenever possible, helping students, giving them permission to fail, and then reflect on why they failed, but have, you know, it's not going to be very open with them. This doesn't feel worse, right? You just have to step back and, you know, helping them navigate that, doing so in a way that's, you know, comforting, more as a mentor rather than an evaluator all the time. I also, within the first 2 weeks, will reach out to individual students just over Canvas message or over email. Canvas message is really easy to do this. You can tailor as much as you want, but I'll often have a kind of stock message and I'll send, and I'll just add their name at the top and say, hey, I'm just checking in. I want you to, you know, kind of personalize things a bit. I'm here to help you succeed in this class. I want you to reach out to me, either directly respond to this message or respond later some other way. But tell me what I could be doing to help you succeed earlier or better in the course. Without fail, I have a few students every semester when I do this that say, and I'll paraphrase, no teacher has ever reached out to ask how I'm doing, how they can help me. And I'd like us to get to a point as an education system, some of these students are thinking about high school, right? When they say that, others maybe have had some college experience. But I'd like us to get to a point where no student can say.
Thank you, Cliff. Yeah. Establishing trust. I really like that. I think I'm going to save that question for you, Charice. Always pick Charice. Kirsten, two-part question for you. Okay. What are some ways to welcome students to keep with the theme and validate their abilities at the start of the term? And what role do mindfulness and self-compassion play in your interaction with those students?
Oh, that's a good question. Those are both good questions. So I would echo a lot of what has already been said. But I think that I also have taken kind of the best parts of different trainings that I've gotten and put them together in my classroom. So one of the things that I do is I do a warm welcome. It's actually very similar to what Trymaine does when we come into MBAR, where I explicitly welcome the variation of intersectional identities that I see and can't see in the classroom. And I name those things when I welcome students in so that they potentially know that I'm directly welcoming them in all of their different intersectional identities. I also do something that is taken from Lift, but I put a little bit of a spin on it, maybe a mindfulness or maybe a self-compassion spin. I did it this year in Lift when I facilitated, but I ask students, what's your biggest fear in this class? And then what are you most hopeful for? And we do the snowball activity, right? Where we throw it around the room and then I have them take it on sticky notes and put it on the wall. And typically what we see is that everyone has the same fear. What do you think it is? Failing, right? Yeah, I'm gonna fail a class. What's the hope? I'm gonna get an A, right? So then what we do as a class is we go around and I ask them, how can we take those fears and turn them into hopes, right? And then when we do have failings happen on a test or on a quiz, something like that, I go back to those sticky notes. I take pictures of them and I bring them up and I say, on the first day of class, you guys said this was how you wanted to be successful in this class. This was your hope for the class. So it's in you, right? We can do it. We can do it together. So that's one way that I do it. I also think that it actually hits on some of the things that are so important about mindful self-compassion that we've talked a little bit about, and that's a common humanity, right? So the students all share that fear. They all share the success that they want together, but it kind of makes them rally around each other when that's something that they all want. It's often something where it's like, okay, maybe you said you were going to study for 8 hours. because that's always the thing that's, you know. And so it's like, well, so maybe instead we can think about how we can break up those 8 hours in a group study, right? Like over the course of the week. So then we kind of adjust it and amend it together. And so it shows some of that common humanity. But then also, you know, you can't take away the power of a good, like, deep breath. I know that it sounds kind of silly, but have any of you guys just taken a deep breath today?
Oh.
Okay. So you guys want to do it, but I would like to hear an audible sigh out. Right? All together.
Right? It's something that can really help us kind of bring ourselves back to that present moment. It's an easy way that we can maybe give something out with mindfulness that also doesn't feel as daunting, right? But also maybe it doesn't open up those doors that sometimes mindfulness does, right? When you say, are you compassionate to yourself? Sometimes someone goes, oh my gosh, I'm so mean to myself, and they start crying, right? So maybe we don't want to do that in a classroom, but asking our students to take a deep breath, or knowing where we have mindfulness resources on campus, right? Knowing that we have resources like Charice, or on the Tri-Cities campus, Sylvia, and maybe saying where there's a meditation room on campus. Those are all things that we can do as we all become like better mindfulness practitioners, if that's something you're interested in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Clif mentioned the importance of trust. And the literature tells us that trust is the key to more equitable outcomes in the classroom. Building trust, establishing trust. So Charice, as a mental health counselor for our multicultural students, what do you believe is essential for faculty to understand when trying to establish trust for our minoritized students?
Well, I think, first of all, understanding that maybe being in this institution is the first time that they've ever had to take a leap of faith on their own, one. Many students of color have never had teachers who look like them. And unfortunately, what they've seen on social media outlets and in other areas of their life is that they don't matter. People who look like them don't matter. So when they come here, they're coming with that. They're coming with biases. They're coming with their own experiences. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think, you know, when they're acting up or not showing up for class, as professors, maybe you have started to label them as opposed to really sitting down and finding out what is their story. Why aren't they showing up? Because they're not just showing up, not showing up for their class, they're not showing up for themselves either. And so, you know, I remember when I came here back in 1990, I was very shocked that this university was not more multicultural. But I was here, it's too late, right? I'm not going back to California now. My mother said I couldn't. So I had to figure out how to best live my best life here. And what that did for me is that I got involved in the African American Student Center. I became president of the BSU. I joined a Black sorority. Like, I did all these things because for me, that was what success looked like for me. And that's what I needed to do to take care of myself. But I think also many times when students step into your classroom, they don't necessarily see you as human, right? They see you as this PhD or this doctor. They don't see you as someone who's fallen before. They don't see you as someone who makes mistakes. And I appreciate what all three of you guys shared, is that you humanize that experience for them. You let them know that, yes, I am human. I have faults. Maybe I took the Southern route to get to this PhD, whatever it takes. And I think showing those bits of your humanity is so important so that they feel comfortable with failing, because we don't teach students how to fail, right? I mean, growing up, they're always told you can't fail, which is ridiculous, because anybody that we know who has any kind of success in this world has failed before they made it. But we don't teach them that. Why not? Why don't we teach them that it's okay not to ace a test? Why don't we teach them that it's okay to say, you want to pass, you don't have to get an A to pass? I mean, there was a couple of C's, maybe C's in my life. But no one cares about that, right? Once I'm in this position, they just want to know that I hear them, that I see them, and that they're safe in my space. And I get to do that because by nature of the job I hold, that's my job, right? I know that's not the thing that you guys get graded on probably when your boss is like, how are you doing? Are your students feel seen? No, they probably want to know how many of them have failed or not failed, right? But just think about the person that you hold dear, the person who stood up for you or believed in you or loved you through a process. Did you care about their credentials or did you care that they were there? And so I think, if you want students to trust you, especially students of color in particular, I would say, then they have to see that you care and you have to show that to them. And it can't just be, oh, I care about you. Like, actions speak louder than words. So they need to see that action put in action.
Humanness and failing. So this question is for Kersten and Jennifer. Okay, so Charice mentioned showing our humanness and being willing to fail. Can you describe the importance of vulnerability when discussing DEI and perhaps discuss how mistakes can be growth opportunities in those settings?
Yes. So I think one of the first things that's really important to think about in this case is that for us to be known, right, for people to know who we are, we have to be willing to be vulnerable and to be our authentic selves. And that's a lot to ask for, right? That can sometimes feel really scary. So I think that part of this is being vulnerable, being brave, but also being really clear about where your boundaries are. Something that I often like to say is clear is kind, right? Clear boundaries, clear communication, clear expectations. Those are all kind. And I think that this goes in a classroom as well as within a DEI space, right? Thinking about this question, I thought about a mistake that I've made in DEI spaces. And so I wanted to share it with you today because I believe that the authenticity and vulnerability from it can be a place where we can really learn from some of those missteps. So growing up, a large majority of my friends were from the AAPI community. And it just happened to be that way, right? It was just that some of my best friends were from the AAPI community. And unfortunately, when we had some of the murders that occurred within the AAPI community, I realized that I really didn't know a lot about the history of hate, really, that had been perpetuated within the United States and in other places. And I didn't really know how to be an ally or an advocate to really a lot of my friends because I didn't know that history. So I went to Stop AAPI Hate, which is now called Holla Back. I did bystander training through them. I took a variety of different online courses. I read several different books. And then I went to my friends and I genuinely apologized that was something that in my DEI education, I had completely overlooked because I hadn't. And I asked them if there was anything that I could do that would be better in their eyes. And there were some specific requests, right? Some people said, no, I never expected anything. Some people said, yeah, I really would like you to donate time here or money here or something like that. And it also opened up a dialogue. But part of that was that I had to be willing to admit my mistake. I had to be authentic and vulnerable enough to do that, to seek out the resources that I needed, and then to be brave enough to have those conversations, right? I think that in DEI spaces sometimes can feel like people are going to be misstep and that something really bad is going to happen. I can tell you from facilitating MBAR, from being in a variety of other trainings, from doing training specific to things like anti-Semitism and different things like that, I haven't seen it happen yet. I haven't had anyone say, well, that's it, get out of the room, right? When someone has had a genuine question or someone has made a genuine misstep, we have to be brave and we have to be authentic if we want to be allies, advocates, and accomplices. And so that's what I would really say is that it's importance of vulnerability, but also of bravery.
Thank you, Kersten. And cultural humility, right?
Yes.
Asking, one of the community agreements in the MBAR program is forgiveness. Quickly asking forgiveness, giving forgiveness, and then also forgiving ourselves. If that's something that is that's offered or encouraged at the start of the class, students and participants are a little bit more likely to ask that difficult question. Yeah, thank you, Kersten.
Thank you.
Jennifer, same question.
So having community agreements or learning agreements are really important from the beginning so that you can have a trusting learning space and letting the students know that, it's highly likely that I'm going to say something potentially that hits you wrong. If I do say something, let's have a conversation about that. Let's open up that dialogue. Because I think it's in those moments where Trymaine calls it ouch, where an ouch happens and you have conversations around that ouch, that feeling can, as an individual, I think that a lot of times I walk around the world with blinders on and I don't even know that I have those blinders on. So, for example, I was born and raised in Spokane, Washington. I don't know if you've heard of it. When I was growing up, it was one of the, still to this day, I think it's one of the top 5 whitest communities in the country. I had no idea. I lived in Spokane. I had some friends who were people of color. So, I understood diversity, right? And then I had my first trip to Washington, D.C. Something else to know about me, if I can find a deal, if I can save a couple of bucks, I'm going to do it. So I decided instead of riding a cab, I was going to ride the metro. So I got onto the metro. I love the metro. It's great. So efficient. But I stepped onto the metro in Washington, D.C., and I sat down and I looked up and I was the only white person on that mountain. That was the first time in my life that I had that experience. And there was this profound sadness that washed over me because I thought about my friends that I had grown up with that looked different than I do. And every day they would come to school and there weren't people who looked like that. And so that was a moment where I had a blinder and that blinder was not. And so I share stories like that with students because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And we might make assumptions about ourselves, assumptions about others. And then when we can get into a place, it starts this questioning process of what we know and what we don't know. So by showing students that vulnerability, sharing with them stories where you've crossed that threshold into having confidence that I know what I'm doing to, oh my gosh, there's an entire world that I didn't know, but now I'm interested in learning about it. Yeah. So how can I learn more? And taking some of the steps that you described. So seeking out readings, doing those readings a lot, engaging in conversation, people who have backgrounds that are different than mine, and opening it up that conversation so I can learn more about people and their life experiences.
Thank you, Jim. We engage in a lot of storytelling involved. I don't know if you're noticing that, but that's a part of the secret sauce to the Mindfulness-based anti-racism program, just so you know. And now I'm going to put Clif on the spot. I love hearing men talk about vulnerability. Clif, as educators, and you know what? Even as men, how do we make space for vulnerability and self-care?
Well, I'll just say that vulnerability in my family and upbringing was not something you did. And so, that's something that I continue to struggle with. I'm going to leave it there for now and talk about a classroom. So one way, and there's different modalities that you might employ to do this, is to offer students regular check-ins with themselves and potentially, depending on how you want to structure the course and your comfort level, with each other or with you, right? So there's a number of ways to do this. It can simply be some of the things that have already been said here. What are your anxieties about this space? You don't have to just do that on day one. But it's probably better to follow up throughout the semester and see if those remain, if they intensified, if they've tamped them down a bit, they realize it's not going to be as difficult as they thought. Maybe they develop some coping mechanisms or some strategies that will help them overcome those. So offering them kind of regular check, and you can decide, and maybe your students can tell you. You can ask them what their comfort level is, right? Is this something that they're just going to write down and you ask them to keep? And you just give them time to do it in class or in a Canvas space. The in-class piece is good for students who show up, but the ones who don't show up enough, those are the ones who really need to engage, right? So ways to do that where there's a place that they don't have to be present to do it, but they've got a space to connect with either with you or at least with themselves or with other members of the class about what their fears, their anxieties, and vulnerabilities are around either a topic in your course or just success in your course or success in college. You can really kind of think about how you want to frame it. But doing that and being intentional about whether it's private or whether it's for sharing, and then have a goal with that, right? It's not just kind of stew in what our hangups are, right? But ask follow-up questions like, what are some things you tried that maybe haven't worked yet, but you tried to kind of address this vulnerability, or what are some steps you might take? Right? This is where peer sharing might be really helpful. The students can learn a lot about this from each other. Maybe not much from us. So one of the things I do at the end of the week, every week in my course, is to ask, what did you learn this week and how did you learn it? Right? So just like, what's one thing, right? Doesn't have to be some mind-blowing idea that you're writing me an essay about. It's just like, what's one thing you took away from the classes? Skill, a detail, a fact, whatever. Okay. And then, is there something you struggled with this week? Right? And I always allow them to say, it doesn't have to be with this class, it could be something else. Your relationship you're having, it could be with another class, with an advisor, another faculty member. I tell them, provide as little or as much detail as you're comfortable, right? I don't need specifics. You can just kind of describe it in vague terms. And they don't have to share that too. Right? So some weeks students are feeling good, right? And their struggles, they're like, they don't find it. Other weeks, not so much, right? And just giving them that time, that permission to think about it. Think about what's troubling them. And to articulate it in words, there's not grading this for grammar, coherence, organization. It's just you're gonna get 1 point for doing this, right? Out of many points in the course, and you can not do them 1 week, and that's not going to count against you. But just checking in with them, having them check in with themselves. That's not necessarily with me. But it also does allow me, if they're willing to share things that I think I could help follow up on, if it seems serious in nature, right? And they've shared that with me, I can then follow up with them. Either refer them to someone like Charice, or just maybe it's just something I can help them with. It's like, let's talk after class. I think I can help you with that. And if I find out I can't, then figure out if I can. So that's one thing that I offer students. It's a place to kind of think about what their struggles are, and to do that regularly throughout the semester, not just at midterms when we know things are intense, or not just at the finals, but maybe when students might not even know that they ought to be thinking about some things that might be at them, or they're trying to actively ignore them. Give them permission to at least think about it for a minute.
Thank you. Question for Charice. So you mentioned students, encouraging students to check in with themselves and to ask how are they showing up. I think it's also important for us as faculty to do the same. How are you showing up? How am I showing up? And how am I taking care of my own mental health and well-being? One of the, so a little bit about me, I'm a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher. I'm a certified MBSR teacher. And so the way in that certification is all about using mindfulness to reduce stress. And as in mindfulness being used as a form of emotional regulation. It's also something that we talk a lot about in the mindfulness-based anti-racism program. So centering faculty now, Charice, how can educators prioritize their own mental health while supporting the students?
Well, I just want to say I'm not the expert on this because as a therapist, I should be doing this on a regular basis. And I have a hard time taking care of self, making sure that I'm who I need to be for students. So no one is expecting perfection, right? But I think understanding that we are, while we wear these professional labels like professor, therapist, chancellor, whatever, we're also human beings. And so I have an argument with my husband on any given day, which we never argue. I bring that in the room with me when I'm talking to a student. I think also how I take care of myself is there have been times where students are sitting with me and they've told me some things that break my heart. And I show them that with my body language. Maybe I actually tear up. Maybe their story resonates with something of mine. And so I share that piece of myself with them so that they understand that I've walked that walk with as well. Maybe it doesn't look the same. Maybe the people and places were different. But I think, taking care of yourself is also unburdening because I'm sure you guys carry a lot of stressors. But who are you talking to? If it's not a therapist, do you have a friend? Do you have a colleague? Do you have someone that you can say, this was rough. I'm going into this classroom today and I don't feel prepared because I'm emotionally spent, or, someone in my family died, or whatever. I slept bad last night. I think really being in contact with your humanness is so important. And that is self-care, to understand that you're not a robot, that you are not going to be perfect, that you're going to fail. You're going to fail in front of your students sometimes. Like, those are things that we have to pay attention to because we're not necessarily taught that. And I'm sure, I love my alma mater, but I'm sure in some ways you hear that, but it's not necessarily enforced. And I will say I love CAPS because they talk the talk and they walk the walk. When they tell us to take time off, they mean take time off. When they tell us if you're sick, don't come in, they mean if you're sick, don't come in. During the summer, we're encouraged to take all your leave. We're encouraged to do something that helps to fill you up. We're encouraged to read. We're encouraged to do all kinds of things that help to fill us up so that we're ready next week to take on the students who are coming back here with God knows what. So I think it's important for you to know what fills you up, for you to know what tears you down, and to try to alleviate the things that tear you down more, so that if it's a person and you have to connect with them on some levels, then connect with them, but don't offer to be in the same room with them. I'm serious. I think we don't talk about that, but we're not all going to get along. We're not all going to like each other's philosophies. We're not all going to like what we stand for, right? But we can decide to be professional, and then on the times where we don't have to be professional on our own time in our own spaces, we decide what it looks like. And I think that's so important, to decide what works for you and to be adamant about, I'm going to do this for me so that I can be who I need to be for my students.
Thank you, Charice. Okay. Yeah.
I just want to add that for those of you that haven't taken MBAR, part of what is really nice about it is now there's a full hour of mindfulness offered before each session. So that's also something that is offered to faculty. And you also do like mindful, is it Mondays or middays or?
Mindful Mondays, yeah.
Mindful Mondays. So I think that that is also good. But also, if your student tells you something that you go, oh, no, like I don't, I would say that knowing that the Cougar Care System is something that's really important. And also, I know that it might not be possible because there are so many classes that are taught here, but also making sure that students know Charice or other services that are available on campus, maybe having them come on the first day, it takes away some of that stigma. Or like if you go to therapy, maybe even just, well, that's what I do. I would just tell students, like, if you email me on Wednesday evening, it's not going to be answered because I went to therapy. And some of that would just take away some of that stigma. But I don't know that faculty know that there's so much that's offered through MBAR that is also just like, you want to learn about mindfulness, there actually is a space that's already there for it. I know that Trymaine doesn't always.
Can you come to everybody's class on Monday?
Yeah, I'll be
Or like maybe there could be, you could even just show, well, you could show a slide that has like Charice's picture on it, and then also has the thing that goes directly to Cougar Cares.
I do now. I'm not saying this because I want phone calls from every one of you, but I do outreach. That is part of my job. I do speak to a lot of students, student groups, whether they're marginalized students or not. I just went and spoke to the honors college today for their facilitators. So I do a lot of that work, and I love that work because I think it destigmatizes mental health, and also they see a face, right? I mean, CAPS is a big thing, but they see Charice, and I'm just Charice, right? And I've actually gotten a lot of students who probably wouldn't go to therapy come in for therapy because I was in their space, and they just saw me as a regular human being who is just, you know, pretty savvy Black woman, I guess.
I like it. We are already. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, back against the time. I want to make time for Q&A. So I didn't get to a lot of the questions. So last question. Closing thoughts, group. Starting with you, Charice. What closing idea or thought would you like to leave this audience? It can be a call to action, a charge, maybe a word of encouragement, whatever you're thinking right now. And I'll start with you, Charice. Yeah.
Whatever I'm hearing.
Yeah, whatever you're thinking right now. This group, closing thoughts in 2 minutes or less.
Okay. I would encourage you as professors to understand that anytime you're standing in front of young men and women or non-binary individuals, they hear you. And I say that because not long ago, I was speaking to one of the multicultural sororities, and this young woman, and we don't share the same racial identity, but this young woman started to cry. And she looked at me and she said, when you first spoke at a different event at the beginning of the last year, you said, I need to know my why. It wasn't to her, but it was to the group. They need to know why they're in this space, what they want. And that meant something to her. And I don't even remember the outreach that I was at, to be honest. But that really hit me in my heart because that reminded me that we are authorities on this campus, whether we see ourselves in that capacity. And when we say something to students, they are listening. And maybe what we're saying is not good for them, and maybe it is. But to understand that everything that comes out of our mouth means something to someone. And so just being mindful of the things that you're reflecting, the things that you're saying, how your syllabus looks, does it exclude people? You know, if you're giving them space to fill, if you are opening up the room to share about yourself so they know, oh, this is just a human experience, right? I think that's so important. So if you hear one thing that I say today, I would encourage you to bring your humanness into the room so that they can see it, because I'm sure they will appreciate it, and also to remember that what you say matters to them.
The thing that I would like to leave today is that I would like to tell all of you that I think you should take MBAR. I'll shamelessly plug it.
Put up a slide.
So I would definitely say take the mindfulness-based anti-racism training if you have not already. I think that it is really, really impactful. And I guess that I would like to leave it with some of the aspects that are from MBAR. So I think that as you guys move through this next year and also just through life, I would ask that you are compassionate to yourself and to others, that you are mindful for yourself and for others, and that also means that You know when you need to be an advocate, an ally, or an accomplice to yourself or to others. So I would really just ask that you show up authentically and bravely for yourself, your students, and for any loved ones around you. And I think that part of that would be taking MBAR. I think, yeah, that's what I would really like to leave everyone with.
I'm gonna follow the shameless plug with a cliche. Teach like the world depends on it. You guys have seen this. It's not bumper stickers. Probably coffee mugs. I really do believe that. I mean, it's not the content, right? I mean, that's important, right? We all have content to offer students, knowledge to offer students, skills to help them develop. But it's really all the things that we're talking about here. Learning from failure, but having support in that. Being given permission to be vulnerable, to take risks, to develop relationships. We have this is like, sociological terms like social reproduction, right? This is what we're all engaged in, as a form of social reproduction, right? We're like reproducing humans, right? Not in a biological sense, but psychologically acculturate them into our institution, right, of higher education, and then into the world, right, into which they're entering. And if we center things like equity, like inclusion, like vulnerability, like learning from failure, those kinds of things, and we can really make a difference. And to go back to what Charice said, she didn't even know she was doing it when she said whatever she said that young woman connected with, right? So it's just what she does. And I think we should all remember that when we're working either one-on-one with students or in front of a classroom or among our students in our classrooms when they're working on something together. We can have a really small things, right? Make a big impact over time. Got any more cliches?
How do I follow that? That's amazing. So if you ever want to feel what imposter phenomenon feels like, have these three people answer a question and then be the fourth person. So I'm going to steal a question from Charice. Remember your why. Why are you here? Why are you in this room? Why do you do the work that you do every day on this campus? So with the beginning of the new year, I feel like it's almost like spring. It's a rebirth, it's a new year, it's a new page. And I would encourage you over this next week, take some time on campus, take some quiet time and really think about why you're here and how you want to show up every day and what you value and how you give back to this community. Think about your service to students. Think about your service to our colleagues and how you can be a better mentor and guide and how you can be a better partner to the people that you show up and you do the work with every single day. Because when we get into the meat of the semester and we get into some of the minutia, it can be really hard. It can be challenging when you get the 48th email from a student who has a question and you're just like, oh gosh, okay, how am I going to answer this? But re-engage with that purpose, re-engage with your why.
Thank you.
That was great.
Wow. Well, thank you. What an amazing panel. So I'm just going to end with this. So hopefully you were able to get at least a few concrete steps and some practical things that you can apply in the fall, starting next week. MBAR is different. Whenever you teach DEI, the most common question that I get asked is just tell me what to do. Tell me, what do I do? What do I do to become an anti-racist or to, have a more inclusive classroom? I asked you this question. who do I need to become? Who do I need to become? Because if you become that person, then you will exemplify an anti-racist. You will foster an inclusive classroom. If I had time, I would put Nancy on the spot. Ooh, I would put you on the spot, Nancy, because you have an amazing example of that. But anyway, if you catch Nancy, ask her what I'm talking about. So, okay, so on the slide really quickly. So I've been teaching NBAR for almost 3 years now here at WSU. Had over 300 faculty go through it. You get a lot of survey responses. This is the survey. Here are my survey responses. Over 234 faculty responded. 94% somewhat or strongly agree that the information presented is useful. And 92% somewhat or strongly agree that the practices in class help them learn. And if it helps them learn, then obviously it helps them teach. So I'm not saying.
The numbers don't lie.
Yep. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Next slide, please. So, and there's registration open in the fall. Next, oh, do I need to hit it? Okay, I can hit it. Here you go. So there you go. It's open in the fall, December 5th. I offer NBAR twice per academic year, once in the fall and once in the spring. So registration is now open. It's from 2 to 5, but the first hour is optional. It's an optional mindfulness course or optional mindfulness lesson. And then from 3:10 to 5 is the actual course. So, all right. Thank you. Any questions or am I out of time?
You can ask questions. I'm going to end this Zoom call and we're going to join a different Zoom link for the next session. So we have time for a couple. Well, Clif doesn't.
I have one question. Hi. Hi, Kara. Hi, I'm Kara. Okay, so this is